Dr. Bhrett McCabe of the MindSide. I love their opening line where it says, the one who makes it happen are the ones who understand that it all begins with the mind. Dr. Bhrett, welcome back into another week with the listeners of the Morning Blitz.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, let's talk a little bit. We're going to get to the Olympics, but I want to, all over the country, and especially right here in our state, there are quarterback battles going on, and some I think are fighting. In some places, they're fighting because they don't have talent, and they're trying to figure out the least dangerous guy, and others have talent, and they're just trying to figure out the best guy, which is two different things. How do you, as a coach, have this battle, let it play itself out amongst the team, and not lose your team or divide your team?
I think that's a great question. So I think from a coaching standpoint, picking a quarterback, which is most of the time it's you're kind of anointing a leader of your team as well, as you're looking for some player who can rally the 11 on the field, including themselves. And it may not be the player who has the best talent, but it's the player who has the best ability to move and function within that team for what the team is trying to do. And I think that's where oftentimes gets coaches caught up, is looking to see who has the best talent and the best potential, and then hoping that over the course of the season that player is going to play at a certain level. But we've seen time and time again, particularly in college football, that the player that can rally the team, can move them through the good and the bad, may not be able to make the big throw, but can make all the other throws. Doesn't necessarily make the mistakes, but can also calm down a huddle. Players can rally behind. Is usually the player that tends to have success. So if you've got a quarterback battle from a coaching standpoint, look at the intangibles of who's going to make your team better, not who, under the right circumstances, will make your team better. And I think that's a big distinction. I see that a lot with my professional athletes, particularly in the golf world. They'll say, well, I know I can hit that shot. I know I can play that good. But the question to me isn't about how good you can play on your best day. It's how good you can play on your average day. And if your average day is better than your competition, you have a really good chance of success. And I think that's where players really need to understand when you're looking at human performances. The best is easy. It's what you do when you don't have, or the game seems fast, or you've struggled. It's how you manage those factors and how you can get the most out of it. There is what really separates great players.
Speaking with Dr. Bhrett McCabe of the MindSide, kind of continuing along that line, as coaches are making decisions, and none more than Nick Saban, but many of them use this word consistency. Is that what you're talking about when you're saying your average? Because it seems that there's some really high highs and really low lows, and sometimes the danger of that is there's a tremendous gap when you have a talented player that may be young versus a veteran who may not be as talented.
Well, think about if you went to you had a nice dinner that you had planned, and you went to a really nice restaurant, but the restaurant was either going to give you a really, really good meal with great service, or you're going to have terrible service with cold food. You wouldn't go there for much longer, because you just simply didn't know what you're going to get. And what makes the best restaurants great is that every single night, it may not be exceptionally off the chart, the greatest thing you've ever had, but it's average. Any given night, if you just stopped into that restaurant, is so good, and you know that the band of variability is so tight that they're going to give you exactly that average performance is just exceptional. And that's what coaches are looking for. The hard thing with dealing with college athletes and high school athletes is, because of the variation of talent on the field, and because of the different levels of their lives where they are, variability is higher. And for coaches, they want to get rid of as much variability as they can to have the most predictability that they can in a game. So if a kid has, the inability to really function and focus, and gives up on themselves early and doesn't work through the difficulties, you're increasing the chance of going from really, really bad to really, really good in a short amount of time. I want somebody who, mentally understands that regardless of how the game starts, they're in it, and they're going to keep working for it. I had a teammate of mine who, after we won the national title one year, and he was a big component of it. The next year he was hitting 180 midway through the season. And, it was such a shock because he was pressing and he was trying so hard. And, 180 is not a very good batting average. And he just really committed himself to being consistent in every at-bat, and he finished the season hitting 310. And for midway through the season, it tells you how hot he got on the last half of the year. But he didn't give up on what he was doing, and he didn't change what he was doing. And he just kind of said, look, I'm better than that, and he just stayed focused with each game. That's what we want to see. As fans, we always want to see exceptional, perfect performances because you've seen them before, and so that all of a sudden becomes the ideal.
Right.
The ideal is the player who might get burned on a play or might miss a tackle, but is the ability to get re-engaged in the next play. That's what coaches want to see. People are going to get beat, but it's can you get back and get ready for the next play.
You're listening to Dr. Bhrett McCabe of the MindSide, our weekly guest right here on the Morning Blitz. Talking about the position battles, and I think quarterback and the other positions are a little different, but from Little League all the way to the NFL, people are dealing with this. When you're going through that position battle, first of all, how do you approach it mentally, because that is your teammate that you're trying to beat out? And secondly, if you're the guy that's second, you don't get the job, how do you handle that not being the starter and develop a role for yourself?
Yeah, I think people need to understand that, first of all, you're not entitled to anything. You're not entitled to being the starter. You're not entitled to a certain amount of playing time. Nothing should be given to you, and nothing needs to be in the perception that you deserve it, okay? The only thing you deserve is an opportunity to compete. It doesn't mean playing time. It means in practice. It means in training and all those other factors. That's what's important. So if you lose the battle, you also have to look at the impact that you can make on the team. In college football today, we have this mass exodus of players across all teams who,
right.
They're not playing, also I'm going to leave. Now, they may be leaving for other reasons, and as soon as they realize they're not going to play, it's like, okay, the sacrifice of being here is not worth it anymore. That's their choice, and I can't, to me, it's kind of like the Navy SEALs. Once you say you want out, I don't think you need to try to keep a guy that wants to stay.
Right.
He doesn't want to stay. They've made that decision. They've already got one foot out the door. But too often when a player goes, well, I'm not going to play, versus going, you know what, I'm not going to play this year, but I'm going to do everything I can. Maybe I'm getting beat out by a better player this year, but I'm going to learn and learn what it takes. It took me 4 years to play at LSU, and so I played my fourth and fifth year, and it was tough, and I had chances to transfer on many different times, but I remember telling my parents if I couldn't play here, I didn't want to play anywhere. I was going to do what it took to learn how to play at LSU. And I'm not saying that's right for everybody, but, I just transferring to me is kind of giving up on the plan unless there's another personal reason. So if you don't win the deal, you don't win the job, you're one play away from getting the opportunity. I know that sounds scary to say, but with injuries today, you're one play away. So why give up on you and the team? Instead, do what it takes to learn. Learn why that player beat you out. It's not because the coach likes him more. It's because there's a reason why the coach feels more trusted with that player, trusts that player more than you. Very simple. It could be in the darkness. It could be the way that other players respond to that player. Learn from what it takes. And as a parent, we have to support our kids by not blaming the coach if you get beat, but instead, looking at it and saying, what can my son or daughter do to learn how to get better, and support them, because you don't always get what you want in life, and you don't deserve anything. So what a great place to learn that than in the sports world.
Speaking with Dr. Bhrett McCabe of the MindSide, my story very similar. I was redshirted, backed up a guy for 3 years, played less as a junior, graduated early, and almost didn't come back for my senior year, which, of course, was the national championship year. But I made a decision on day one when I signed that I would not quit. And, of course, as you say, stuck to the process, the plan, and it worked out great. You're talking about guys who have stuck to the process and to a plan. Two Olympians that did something that, one is a country unto himself, and Michael Phelps, 23 goals, and Usain Bolt winning the 3x3, all his the 100 to 200 and the 4x100, all three times, all three goals. Something that's never been done. What separates these two athletes? Is it a result of of them being the greatest athletes, or a combination of understanding what we talk about a lot here, the complete player from the athletics to the physical to the mental?
Well, I think, let's be honest, they both have some genetic alterations that maybe would put them on the on movies, right? But they both have some very strong physical and genetic gifts, but they've done something with them. They just haven't rested on that. They're both extremely hard workers, and I think when you see Michael Phelps saying that he's done, probably because he's done sacrificing what it takes to be at that level. But I think deep down they both know what it takes to be great. They're both willing to do it, and most importantly, that when they get on the track or in the lane and swimming, they're not really competing against the people left and right of them. They're doing what it takes to be the best that they can be. And unfortunately for the competition, they have such a head start on everyone else. They're not coasting off of what the person next to them is doing. They're going out to do their best. And every day they're trying to push that level. And I think that's a big thing for particularly youth athletes to understand is if you're in competition, you're looking left and right. You're not setting your bar high enough. Your bar should always be set by what you believe you can do and then seeing how it measures at the end of it. Those two guys, and Katie Ledecky and some of the others that we've seen in the Olympics, that's why I think the Olympics is so captivating for the American public, is we see the best of the best for 1 or 2 weeks a year, every 4 years, absolutely at their best. And now they kind of go back into being a little irrelevant, unfortunately. But what is amazing to me is seeing somebody like a Phelps at his age, Bolt at their age, at the end of their careers, and yet they still have so much more that they could compete with. But that just shows to me how much sacrifice it takes. And in the darkness and in the times when the bright lights are not on, the things that they're doing that other people simply aren't. And they both dealt with some drama in their lives. They've both dealt with some bad choices, but that they can continue to focus on what's important and how to succeed when it matters the most.
One last question for Dr. Bhrett McCabe of the MindSide. High school football got started, Doc, as we always like to try to give something to the high schoolers and their parents. The season got started. There was injuries. There was loss. There was guys who thought they were going to start, thought they were going to get playing time, didn't. Sort of like the post-competition and the Olympic letdown afterwards is just like, oh, man, where do we go from here? What advice would you give those parents and players who things didn't go the way they expected in week one?
It's a long season, okay? And you got to think, the seasons are going to end when we're wearing parkas watching a football game. And right now it's 90 degrees and we're dying and sweating out there, right?
Right.
So if you think about how long the season is going to be and the opportunity for a player to grow through the season, and it might be starting slow, but growing, write the chapter. The final chapters of the book haven't been written. But if we take the first introduction and make that the final chapter, we're missing the opportunity for so much. I think most of the time pressure comes from the what does it mean versus what am I doing? What does it mean, to try to get recruited? What does it mean to try to have that perfect season? What does it mean to have that storybook year as a senior versus I have a game up on deck on Friday. Can I be ready? Can I go in there and make the plays that I need to play? And then allow the story to tell itself. Okay? Don't try to write the story before it's over.
That is Dr. Bhrett McCabe of the MindSide. Visit themindside.com, whether it be a professional athlete, college program, the elite athletes or the elite athletes. He's working with them, helping them to become the best them they can be. So check out the MindSide. Thank you, Dr. Bhrett, for being a part of the Morning Blitz.
Thanks for having me.